Good morning, this is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for October 8th, 11 a.m. Let's start out by doing a little inventory on the 2012 Atlantic hurricane season. And here's Hurricane Michael up on the screen. This is the only hurricane that achieved major hurricane status so far this hurricane season, and it peaked out at only 115 miles per hour with a pressure of 964 millibars, or on your home barometer 28.47 inches. The system did not affect any land masses, as you can see, but this was not even near land. This is about as far out in the middle of nowhere as you could get out in the Atlantic, and this is only the only major we've had all year. Now, if you want to look at history, you'd have to go all the way back to 1994 to find a season that did not have a hurricane reach at least 115 miles per hour. So we have to go back 18 years, the last time we've had a season this dead as far as the strength of hurricanes are concerned. So that's quite a stretch. Now, we have a ways to go yet. We have all of most of October here to go in November. We have a rich hurricane history of majors in October and November. So we have some systems coming up here down the road that could develop, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. But just to let you know, Dr. Gray made his forecast. Dr. William Gray and Phil Klotzbach from Colorado State University made their predictions on June 1st for 13 named storms. We're already up to 15 named storms. And the next named storm would be Patty, by the way, which if one of these systems develops out there. And they predicted we'd have 5 hurricanes. We've already had 8 hurricanes this year. And they also predicted that we would have 2 major hurricanes, and we've only had 1 major hurricane. Of course, we have a ways to go yet. Now, as far as NOAA's forecast is concerned, they predicted 12 to 17 named storms, and we're at 15, so they're right there. They predicted 5 to 8 hurricanes. We're at 8 hurricanes and 2 to 3 majors. I don't think we're going to get 3 majors, but we might get 1 more as the season wraps up. We'll have to see about that. But anyway, that's the way the status is right now. No majors. No season has had no major hurricanes going all the way back to 1994. So 18 years is the last time this has ever happened where we haven't had a system go over 115 miles an hour. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Now, as far as my predictions are concerned, on June 1st I come out with my city and islands that I feel are going to be affected by a named storm within 60 miles. So far, Key Largo has been affected by Tropical Storm Isaac. Spring Hill, Florida, which is north of Tampa, was affected by Tropical Storm Debbie. And Homosassa, Florida, these are all highlighted in yellow here. Homosassa, Florida, Tropical Storm Debbie. Marathon, Tropical Storm Isaac. Andros Island, Bahama, Isaac. Apalachicola, Florida, Tropical Storm Debbie. And Panacea, Florida, Tropical Storm Debbie. At the beginning of the hurricane season, if you were watching, I predicted that the Big Bend, Florida area would be a high activity area this year, and the Florida Keys and the west coast of Florida. So that's what I was kind of thinking. I did mention South Carolina. They have not been affected this year. But so far, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of my top 20 have been affected this year. So pretty good, and we still have a ways to go yet. So we'll see how this all plays out. So anyway, what's going on out there right now? Let's take a look at the graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have one system in the Bahamas here. This is Invest 97L. Under high wind shear right now. It's really not going to develop very much. The thinking is it's going to meander in the Bahamas for quite a few days here, and then may get pushed down into the Caribbean under a ridge of high pressure, but the shear is going to be high out here. There's a system out about 1,500 miles east of the Leeward Islands that the National Hurricane Center feels this could develop slowly over the next few days. I don't think it's going to develop much over the next few days, but once it gets near the Caribbean, it could be in a more favorable environment. The long-range models indicate that this could be north of Puerto Rico, and then it will gradually turn off to the northwest, missing the Bahamas and hooking north. But again, those are long-range models, and there's large errors in the long-range models. Everybody needs to understand that we have a ways to go yet. October, November are usually pretty busy, especially October. So let's take a look at the satellite image, water vapor loop of the entire Atlantic basin. You'll see we have our system here in the Bahamas. It's blowing up a little bit, but again, it's being sheared by southwesterly wind shear. Very difficult to develop unless you have a high-pressure loft, and this is going to have a hard time developing a high-pressure loft because of the wind shear out of the southwest. You notice we have a big upper-level low here northeast of the Caribbean Sea, and this is causing wind shear out in front of our developing system out in the East Atlantic, which will be the new Invest, should be 98L over the next 24 hours, and it will track that across. But that should struggle until this upper-level low gets out of the way, and then we may see some development. This could be one that could potentially maybe reach major hurricane status once it gets near the north of the Caribbean in a more favorable environment. sea surface temperatures are plenty warm out there, so we have a lot to work with. Here is the wind shear, current wind shear values in the Atlantic Basin, and notice the high wind shear over Florida and the Bahamas. We have wind shear 20 to 30 knots just north of where the axis of 97L, which would be this red circle right here. So under these kinds of circumstances, you're just not going to get any development. You'll get a blowing off of fanning of the clouds and convection building up, but they won't be able to consolidate around the center with westerly and southwesterly winds around 30 knots. Just not going to happen. So this long-range models indicate, in fact, I'll show you the long range here on the Hurricane City model maps, and the indications are that this is going to loop-to-loop around out here for a little while and then eventually maybe head off to the southwest in the Caribbean. We'll still have to watch it. Anything's possible down there. And again, water temperatures are 80 plus all in here, so it's very warm sea surface temperatures to work with, but we have very high wind shear. This is probably not going to happen with this system, but we'll have to watch the one behind it. Now here's a visible shot of Invest 97L, and you can see there's a bit of a circulation probably over here near, I'd say maybe Cat Island, Long Island, Bahamas, maybe a little bit of rotation down in here somewhere, but the long-range indicators are this is going to kind of just meander around out in here. We were going to feature one of the islands in the Bahamas, but it's kind of difficult to figure out where the center of this thing is, so we're just going to leave it alone until if it ever develops, and then we'll focus on what islands we'll feature at Hurricane City. But right now, current feature remains St. John's, Newfoundland, that got affected by the hurricane a couple weeks back from Leslie that moved up into Newfoundland. Okay, do I have any more images to show here? I believe, no, that's about it. Anyway, that's about it. We'll keep track of 97L here, but really nothing to worry about. The next one will be the concern 98L, which should be approaching the northern Leeward Islands by the end of next week, and then we'll see what happens after that. The models can shift a lot, so the season is by far not over yet. So everybody needs to pay close attention to what's happening in the tropics. That's it for now. I'll be back in a few days with another update. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.